Hello and welcome to today's KDP University's At Home with Melissa Foster. I'm Trisha, and for the past 4.5 years, I've moved around Amazon's books teams learning the business so I could share it with authors. Prior to coming to Amazon, I worked as a graphic artist, a project manager, and an educator. When I'm not spending time with my family painting or playing in my garden, I'm privileged to work on the KDP University team, helping authors use the KDP website to make the most of their author journey. But enough about me. We're all here to talk to Melissa. Melissa Foster is the New York Times and USA Today best-selling and award-winning author of the Love in Bloom Big Family Contemporary Romance Collection. Included in the series, such as the Bradens, the Whiskies, Bayside Summers, and many more. Melissa's emotional journeys are lovingly erotic and always family-oriented. Melissa's series are unique in that every book, nearly 100 of them, may be enjoyed as a standalone novel or as part of the larger series. Melissa also writes her stories as clean, sweet romance under the pen name Addison Cole. Welcome, Melissa. Awesome. So how are you doing this morning? It's morning where you are, right?
It's morning where I am, as you can see from the sun pouring in. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm excited to talk with you and answer all the questions that have come in.
Wonderful. So let's start with a little bit of background. I always like to ask authors, when did you decide that being an author was your calling?
15 years before I started writing. When my second son was a year old, I put him down for a nap, and literally it was one of those moments where a story came to me and I had to write it. Grabbed my IBM ThinkPad and a yellow legal pad, sat in one of those round Pier 1 chairs, and started writing a story. But I'm not the kind of writer who can sit down and write stories in chunks, 15 minutes here. And my hat goes off to everybody who can do that. I need time. I need to really saturate myself with the world. So we had many kids, and I was working full time, and I was raising children. I had to wait until my lifestyle was conducive to putting my energy into writing. So when our youngest went into kindergarten, I put him on the bus, and I've been writing ever since. And I think that was 2006, and I published my first book in 2009.
Well, congratulations, that's amazing.
It was a long wait.
Yeah, I bet. Did you actually publish that first story?
Yes. Well, yes, the first story that I published was not actually the first story that I wrote. The first story that I wrote was the second book that I published.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and that one, I mean, it's a first book. Usually people don't publish the first manuscript. I rewrote it about 5 times.
Right. Well, that brings me to that next question. We get a lot of questions about your writing style. So it inevitably comes up. Are you a pantser or a plotter?
Up until about 2 months ago, I was a total pantser. And I mean, I would have an idea in my head, I'd sit down and I'd write, and I never mapped anything out because I'm like a rebellious child. So if I have an outline, I go the other way. And then about 2 months ago, one of my assistants said, I'm going to teach you how to plot because it's going to make your writing go quicker. It's going to be less frustrating for you. I kind of rolled my eyes at her. But now we have sort of plotting sessions, and I'm not a real plotter, but she has sort of reined me in a little bit from to give myself a few milestones. So I would still say I'm a pantser, but I have milestones now to work toward.
Are you finding that that's helping?
Sometimes, and sometimes it just makes me run the other way. I don't think you can really change who you are. I think my voice and my characters take over no matter what I do. And that's what I love about writing. So like in one instance, when we tried to do that, I couldn't write towards what we thought I was going to write towards. And it was frustrating. And I had to stop using those milestones. So I still think that I'm a pantser who is trying to learn how to be a little more organized with writing. How's that?
That works. So we talked a little bit about your writing style. What is your genre that you primarily write in? Do you write in multiple genres or just
Contemporary
one?
romance is my main genre. I started writing with women's fiction, historical fiction, thrillers, suspense. I loved that aspect. And then every single one of my books made people ugly cry. And one of my friends, when I was on vacation, dared me to write something that wouldn't tear her heart out. So I wrote Sisters in Love, and the very first thing that I asked myself was, who can I kill? And so there is a death in that book. And so I think that's why my books tend to be romance, but a little more also women's fiction-y, because I get into deeper issues and more depth into story, and I deal with things that people don't like to deal with, like homelessness and cancer that happens on the page rather than before or after the novel. So I really bring some of those real life, in-depth, women's fiction-y type of, and I hate to, say it's another genre, but I mean, these are real romance, single themed romances, except for Snow Sisters, but I like the depth of story. So I bring that in.
Why did you decide to kind of take that direction?
Because when she dared me to write something that wouldn't rip her heart out, and I wrote Sisters in Love, it was really a story about two sisters, and then they had a third sister that was a half sister. And as I started building the world, I just fell so hard with not just the process of world building, but being in that world. And I kept meeting these characters. And in the third, Sisters in White, the third book in the Snow Sisters series, we meet the Bradens. And once I met them, I was like, oh, I have to write their stories. So I created this world that I don't want to leave. And what I've done with my series is that all of my books interconnect. So even though they can all be read as standalones, the couples from the very first book are still having babies, and we're still getting updates on them in book, 85 of the Love and Bloom series. And under that umbrella, the Love and Bloom umbrella, I have separate families. So they have friends and other families. So our readers and me, because I'm very selfish that way, never have to say goodbye to their characters. So it's like the perfect place for me.
I love how you talk about your characters as that you're meeting them, and that, these are real.
They're so real.
So if you had to pick one character that you just absolutely love in your books, who would it be?
I can't, that I absolutely love, I can do. My favorite character I can't do, because that's like picking a favorite child. I think Hal Braden is one of my favorites. He's the patriarch for the original Bradens of West End, and he is definitely one of my readers' favorites. And he's wise, he's so loving, he has flaws. But he's this big burly guy who you just want to get to know and hug, and he's still in love with his late wife. And that resonates on every page that he's on. And he has all these little pieces of wisdom. I just love him. Like, I would like for him to be my father.
Oh, that's so sweet. Now I'm going to have to, I've read a couple of them, but now I don't think so. I think they call it cathartic.
Yes, probably.
Now, you self-publish, correct? Are you both self-published and
Yes, I also publish through Montlake Romance, which is a division of Amazon, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you choose between self-publishing and traditional publishing? Why do you choose?
For me, it was easy. I think I upset my agent at one point because she was in a bidding, she had one of my series out and it was in a bidding war, and the third day and I took it back. And it's a control thing, because with traditional publishers, you lose a certain amount, you lose a lot of control. And for me, that was really important. I didn't want to suddenly add little pieces into my stories because one person thought I should add them. I like the freedom of being able to develop the characters as they come to me, and in the worlds and scenarios, and dealing with the issues and personalities that they possess. And like you said, when I meet them, and as I get to know them, that's important to me because that's real and that comes from my heart. And I think writing from your heart resonates on the page much stronger than if somebody says, an editor says, I think you need to add this type of dare into your stories, or this type of element that will weave through everybody in the family. And I'm looking at them going, no, that doesn't happen. So for me, I think it was just control, and it's kind of like keeping my flock close. And with Montlake, I have a lot more. I have a lot of control. I mean, I'm lucky, knock on wood, I'm lucky. They love my stories and my characters as they come to them. So I don't have to give up that element of the element of control. That's really what it is. I hate to be repetitive.
Okay. So if you were trying to explain to somebody about self-publishing, what's one thing that you wish people understood about self-publishing?
That they understood or that they actually carried out. If I was talking to a writer, I would say, do not rush to the finish line, because there are a lot of writers who either can't afford editors or just don't pay to get their books edited and proofread. They write them and they throw them out there. And you can't really gain well, let me back up. Readers deserve clean books. I don't mean clean sexually. I mean clean grammatically, free of typos, free of errors, free of plot holes, which are things that developmental editors find. And it's expensive. I spent thousands of dollars on editing for every book, and I have 5 proofreaders for every book after my developmental and my copy editor. And I think that that's critical, because what stops a reader faster than errors or plot holes, or stories that could be written better. So I wish that all authors who would like to publish would take the time to get their work edited. I think that's critical. And if you're really trying to build a solid readership, then they have to trust you. They have to trust that they're going to get quality books. And I don't care if it's a 99-cent short story or if it's a 135,000 word novel. Every single word that's on that page deserves to be written correctly and used correctly. So in my eyes, I think that's the most important thing.
So other than your editors, do you also have beta readers? We get that question a lot.
Well, okay, so some people define beta readers as people that you send chapter to chapter to as you write. Other people define beta readers, they call advanced readers beta readers. Advanced readers aren't, in my view, advanced readers are not beta readers. Beta readers who are reading while you're writing, to give you a reader's perspective. So I have 2 people who I will occasionally send things to as I'm writing. One of them is my assistant. Another one is sort of a part-time assistant, also a friend, but both are harsh critics. Like, they will tell me if something doesn't resonate on the page, and we'll argue back and forth. Sometimes I win, sometimes they win. But I think that that's important with somebody that you trust. The problem with beta readers is that reading is subjective. So you could give your book to 10 different people and they will come back with 10 different views on how, if the writing is high enough quality, or if the story is going where it should go. So I don't rely on the 2 people that I mentioned. I don't rely on them to tell me if they think a story should go a different direction. I'm more saying, from a reader perspective, do you need more depth in this? Does this emotion resonate on the page? That sort of thing. So I keep my story how I want it. And for the ARC readers, those are early, those are advanced readers. So those are people who get the book early, get to review it. I get honest comments. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But it's not going to change my story. By then, by the time an ARC reader gets it, the story is done. And it's been through editing, it's done.
Right. So how much those advanced readers, what do they bring to you and your team? What is it? What's the value of having an advanced reader?
Well, for me, a lot of the advanced readers are people who have been, I'm a super loyal person, like insanely loyal. And so I have bloggers who have been with me since day one, and they may have 7 people who read their blog, but they were willing to promote me since my very first book. So a lot of my advanced readers are those loyal readers who have read all of my books and given me honest reviews. Sometimes they're 5 stars, sometimes they're 3 stars, sometimes they're 4 stars. You know, it's not that the relationship guarantees a 5-star review. It's that these are the people who were with me and they've held my hand and they've cheered from the rooftops when, you know, when I was a baby, so to speak, in the writing industry. So what they bring to me is that feeling of, wow, they still want to read my books. This is awesome. So it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's very inspirational. I have started mixing up my advanced readers, and we give other people a turn to do advanced reading. And obviously you get reviews, you get support, for me anyway. We don't require that they promote the book or anything like that. If they don't ever want to post about the book and they just want to do an advanced reading, that's fine. So I think what I get out of it is just that support, and it's really a personal thing. Like, it's not there for other authors or readers or anything else. It's just me kind of appreciating and giving back to them because they're giving to me. I don't know how to explain it better than that.
I think you explained it wonderfully. I think that that's really touching and definitely illustrates how linked and connected you are with your readers.
I love my readers. I spend way too much time chatting with them in my fan club and on Facebook and on Instagram. I love them because those are the people who are reading my books. I want to hear what they have to say.
Right. So what social media channels do you spend the most time with? And do you find that that's a really great space to market your upcoming books?
Always. I think social media is the way in today's day and age to market. You know, it wasn't so big when I started publishing, but now that's where most people are. There's a lot of people who are not on social media still, and when I send out my newsletter, I get those people who send me notes back saying, I'm not on Facebook or I'm not on Instagram, and you know, how can I stay connected with this? Or you're doing a giveaway and I don't want to go there. Again, important feedback. So all of my emails that come to me, I respond to personally. I don't have an assistant doing that. I know a lot of people do, but I like that. I like to get that feedback and process it. So I spend the most time on Facebook, I think, out of all of my social media, and I'm everywhere, but I think I spend the most time on Facebook because I have my private group there and we've got a couple thousand members, and a lot of those, well, not a lot, but several of those members have ended up in books. And their inspiration, and I always let them know when they are. But that's kind of my go-to place. My fan club is my go-to place when I'm procrastinating, or if I've just written a great scene and I just need to breathe, or if I'm crying from a scene and I need to laugh. Like, I go there and I give them updates on what I'm writing and show them pictures, and that's as much for them as it is for me, because you know, it fills me up inside.
So to follow up on that, how much time do you spend, like, are you
don't ask me that.
I know you're already laughing as you're like, yeah, don't ask me this question. But kind of walk us through your day. Do you have a structured, I write at this time and then I work on the business at this time and I interact at this time? What does that look like?
The only thing in my entire life that's structured is my writing. So I am at my desk usually around 7, and I'm either on my exercise bike, which is a bike desk, or on my on my treadmill desk. And then I do my administrative work from 7 until usually 8:30, 8:45, and then I take a shower because I'm sweaty and gross. And then I'm at my desk writing right after that. And, you know, people talk about writer's hair. It's so true. I will skip washing my hair so I can get downstairs to write sooner. And then, so the admin is my business, and I have full-time assistants who help me with some of that, but admin doesn't stop because I'm writing. So I am constantly checking my email while I'm writing. You know, I'll write some of a scene, check my email. I'll get messages on social media and have to respond to those. So that goes on all day. And I typically am writing until nowadays, typically about 8 o'clock at night. Some days a little later. Some days I just quit a little earlier, you know, 6 or 6:30. but that's it. I mean, I am, and 7 days a week for me, because I don't do nothing well, unless, and this sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I can relax when I go away, and I spend summers up on Cape Cod. So I go there and I plot, and I do not let myself write books. I can write, information about what I want that's upcoming. And I do forward planning with my assistants. But that's my rejuvenation time. And I found that when I try to work less at home, I just sit in front of the TV, and that's not fun for me. I'm sitting in front of the TV, but I'm thinking about characters.
Right.
So my days are very structured around that. And, if one of my kids needs me or something like that, of course, that they come first. But my kids are big, they're happy to do their own thing, and they're in school, and they're, only one lives here anymore, and he's 19. So we hang out at night. And yeah, that's my life. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, it sounds like the writing is what you enjoy so much that, it doesn't make sense to say, oh, I'm only going to force myself to write this part.
Yes.
It's what helps you kind of move through your day.
Oh, it totally centers me. And I do like to take walks and things. So I'll drag my son out sometimes, or I'll just go out for a walk or a run or whatever. But this is my happy place.
So if you, as an independent author, so that part of the being an independent author, if you had to sum up your experience of becoming self-published in just a few sentences, what would your story look like?
Okay, so when I started, remember, it was very different than it is now. When I published my first book, everybody snubbed their noses at self-publishing. I think MJ Rose was like the only person who I knew who didn't, and she thought it was a great idea. She's wonderful, by the way. But most people snub their noses at it. But luckily, I realized very quickly that readers didn't know the difference and didn't care. They wanted a good story. So I've always been one who believes that you have to put money into something and be everywhere. So anybody who tells you that they just threw a book out there on Amazon and suddenly they became a bestseller, I don't know what I can say here, but bull hockey. And it just doesn't happen that way. It's not like a luck of the draw type of thing. You really have to let readers know you're out there. So when I published my first book, I was snubbed by so many people, even neighbors, friends. They, you didn't really publish. You just put it up on, on retailers, and it was ridiculous. And so, but that I'm really competitive. So to me, it was like, oh, really? Watch this. So once my first book did really well, I remember when I put it on Kindle, oh my gosh, that was crazy. It was like $500 at the time to format a book for Kindle. It was insane. And so when I put it on Kindle, I realized I could reach more readers. And so that book took off. That was Megan's Way, which is a really, really personal story to me, and I absolutely love it. But that one took off. And then I just kept writing and kept putting things out there. I got contacted by a small press who wanted to take some of my books. And so there was that whole, research and journey and type of that type of thing. And then I just continued doing what I do. I've never been the kind of person who says, okay, I'm going to write a book and then I'm going to sit back and see what it does. No, there are stories in here. They need to come out. So I just kept writing, and thankfully, they clicked, and I learned more about, I was a marketer before in my previous life. And so I knew how to market. So it was just a matter of learning how to market in the book world, and putting together these big book launches and everything was very grassroots at the time, because we had a zillion kids and no money. So, I got together with a number of different authors and did release parties and that sort of thing. And and it wasn't just for my book, we shared and promoted everybody's book, because I'm not one that takes and doesn't give. And so that, and then I built this kind of world around me. I believe in giving back wholeheartedly. So at that point, I started the World Literary Cafe, which was a place for readers and writers to connect. I had like 15,000 members. And I had started a social network for women. So I ran those for a couple of years while I was publishing, but then my publishing took over and I had to let those go. But I was helping authors learn how to market their books and connecting them with editors and proofreaders and beta readers. And to me, the hardest thing for me was learning everything on my own. So as I learned, I wanted to show everybody else how to do it because why reinvent the wheel?
Right.
You know? So, and that was my journey. And so eventually I came to a place where, I don't know, my writing just really took off. When I got into romance, I fell in love with it. And so I started writing 10,000 words a day. And I know it was insane, but I did that for years. I did that for a number of years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I couldn't write fast enough. And it was from within. It wasn't like, oh, I want to earn this money. My career has, people don't believe this, but it's never been about money. Ever, ever, ever. My career has always been about stories I want to tell, get them on the page. If somebody reads it, yay, I will celebrate that, every single reader. But it's a drive. I mean, it's I don't write for trends. I don't stay away from the topics people tell me to stay away from. I write because it's a passion. And so that's one reason when people say to me, do you think I should start writing suspense or this or that? I'm like, I don't know. What do you want to write? Because that's what's going to resonate with your readers, or with and you'll find your niche. That's what's going to resonate. Not, people are writing billionaires, so I better write those.
And that's what we've heard from a few different authors, is that passion, that drive, when you're interested in something, it comes across on the page and your readers are interested in that as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, you brought up marketing. So let's talk about kind of your marketing now. How has it changed over the years, and kind of what are some of your best practices?
Okay. Let me take a drink first. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So how it has changed during the years. In the early years, I would pay for blog ads, because people were blogging more and people were going to blogging sites. I don't do that anymore. Now it's I do the same social media, before release. And really for me, it's an all the time process. So if I'm writing a book, I try to let people know that it's going to be coming, even if it's a year later. I want them to know what the process was, because a year later they're going to go, oh my gosh, I remember her talking about how she cried over this scene, and that's everything. So I do sort of a social media. Not much, just like graphics. And then I do Facebook ads. Everybody does Facebook ads. And there is no magic bullet. That is the thing to know. Like, you're not going to place a Facebook ad and all of a sudden sell 40,000 copies. It doesn't work that way. It's about, for me, what I've learned, what works best for me, and I can only speak to about myself, is that being everywhere helps. And I have always believed that in every aspect of marketing, that I guess I'm a visual person. So think to yourself about McDonald's versus Arby's, right? When you think, I want to get a hamburger, do you ever think Arby's? No, because Arby's is not everywhere. They're not on billboards and radio and TV and internet, but McDonald's, now that is a household name. So for me, it's about showing readers that I'm out there. Eventually, if they've seen, some of my books 5, 6, 7 times, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times, who knows, 15 times, eventually, hopefully they'll pick one up and they'll either love my voice or they won't. But so my marketing technique is to be everywhere. And I'm not saying, that I'll spend $1,000 a day to be everywhere. I mean, I'm just talking about spreading your wings and touching as many people's lives as you can. And it's kind of, I do that for everything. So I will run Facebook ads upon release. I don't run one book for a year, but I, spend a couple of weeks just kind of spreading my wings out on Facebook and social media. I do some Amazon ads. I don't do Google ads or anything like that. I do some Instagram ads. But that's, that's about it as far, oh, my newsletters, of course. That's big for marketing. And those are the people who have sought me out, and want to know. Can I talk about one mistake that authors make with their newsletter? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because for new authors, it's really important. There are giveaways where people sign up for 100 newsletters at once without really knowing it because they don't read the small print. That's going to saturate people with newsletters and they will all become white noise. So I would suggest to any authors who are doing a giveaway where you have to join a mailing list, that you keep that list separate from the curated list from your website. Because the people who are on your website typically are ones who sought you out, and they are going to be the ones who are interested in what you have to say, more so than the person who's now getting 1,700 newsletters from 1,700 different authors every single month and tossing them all.
Right.
And the value of newsletters has diminished in the last 5 years tremendously because of those types of actions. So I would just tell authors, sure, it's a good idea to do that, and you can broaden your base by doing that, but just try and keep your newsletters separate, because your open rates will go down. You're not going to be able to evaluate what's really working and what's not. And even if you don't know how to evaluate that now, a year from now, 2 years, 7 years, you're probably going to be able to learn how to use that.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you build so you talked a little bit, and this always comes up. People want to know how to build a newsletter, an email list for the newsletter.
Well,
How did you build yours?
Just two ways. I was not big on giveaways that signed people up. I have done some in the last 2 or 3 years and to test them out, but those are not on my main newsletter list. I keep them separate. I send them all the same information, but I just know where they came from. So if I get a low open rate on those, it doesn't surprise me. But I believe in building email lists that are valuable. So I put it on my website, and I put it in the back of each of my books. So it's in the front and the back, actually, because readers have different habits. So if you want to keep up to date, click here, and then at the end of it, also, if you want to keep up to date, click here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now we'll switch gears just yet again. You have kind of a new series and a new book, A Little Bit Wicked, which is the first book in the Wicked's Dark Nights at Bayside, and it's releasing very soon, next week.
Yes, next week. I'm so excited. I actually have a copy. Ta-da!
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the process of starting a new series, and then talk about the book?
Yeah. You said before that my characters seem real. My characters are so real that my kids know about all of them because I talk about them like they're having dinner with us. So my whiskey series is a series that is, okay, let me back up a little bit. Most of my family series, the Bradens, the Remingtons, the Riders, Seaside Summers, Bayside Summers, are not urban life, blue collar type of every single character fits into this mode. My characters are all different. We have blue collar, we have urban life, we have billionaires, we have middle class, lots of different people. The Whiskeys are a motorcycle club, or the Dark Knights are a motorcycle club, and the Whiskeys are all from this other part of life where they've had to deal with harsher things growing up. And they're fiercely protective, and they're very badass, and they're big burly tattooed guys mostly, but not all of them. There are doctors and lawyers and all walks of life, but I can get into that nitty gritty, the nitty gritty aspects of life, and I can show. It's just like a whole different it's a whole different type of book, because it is a grittier, angstier book, where we're talking about a guy goes into a crack house, and finds his mother has OD'd, and he realizes he has 2 little children, little brother and sister that he never knew about, and he's just gotten out of prison for a crime his brother committed. So like that's True Blue, the first book in the Whiskies. That is very different than say a Braden book, you know, where we have people who are owning real estate companies or whatever they might be doing. So the Wickeds are cousins to the Whiskies. And what happened was Justin Wicked is part of my Bayside Summers series. I met him in Bayside Summers several books ago. And he and another Bayside Summers character, Chloe, have been flirting back and forth for years, right? So when it was time to write their book, I had to make a decision. Are they going to stay in this Bayside world? But let me back up. In one of the Whiskey books, I met the rest of Justin's family, and I met a lot of their Dark Knights, you know, friends. And oh my God, I fell so much in love with them. I just thought they are way too big to be in Bayside. Like they'll take over. They need to have their own world, and I need to be in it. So that's why I started that series, because these stories have to be told. The one Justin's story is going to rip people apart and then put them back together. But the next book in the series, oh, people are going to be flat out on their back, including me. Like I've been thinking about writing this book for probably 3 years. And it just, yeah, it's a whole different level of story. So that's how that world came to be. And people talk about, can series get too long? Well, I'm almost up to 100 books, and I don't think series can get too long. I think when you have series fatigue is when you are writing the same book over and over. And people do that. You know, they find a rhythm that works for them. I am so not formulaic. Like, I don't even know how to spell the word. I mean, I do, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm the farthest from formulaic as you could ever get, because my characters are so different from each other, and what they've gone through is so unique. And it would bore me to write the same story over and over. So I don't feel like I fall into that category of long series fatigue. I mean, you always lose any series will lose some readers along the way. Right. But when I get to the point that I'm either meeting somebody in the book who needs to have their own world, I'll split it off. But I don't end series. So, you know, they carry on in other books, and sometimes I go back and I write novellas or full books in series that have already been out there. But I leave it open because I don't know when I'm going to meet somebody else who belongs there. So I never say that a series is over, because it never feels over to me. So, because that's how that came about.
Because it's part of life, right? So you're seeing their lives unfold. A quick question, because you mentioned the fact that they got out of jail, and there's such richness and such depth. How much research do you do?
Oh my God, exhaustive. I do exhaustive research. I spend hours talking to, depending on the book. But like, you know, talking to attorneys and talking to people who have been in prison and talking to families of those people. One of my Montlake books deals with Love Like Ours, deals with a father who has Parkinson's. No, I'm sorry, that's Seaside Nights. Sorry, I get confused. I have a lot of books. Has early onset Alzheimer's. And so I I put a call out in my reader group, and I talked to families, and my husband is a doctor, so I spoke to physicians. I talk to nurses, and, you know, I do a lot of research. And even if this much of it gets on the page, I am the type of person who needs to know everything, because if I'm going to create a character, it has to be real. And one of my characters in one of my Braden books in the Peaceful Harbor series, I won't give away which because it's a big spoiler. Well, my readers aren't on here. This is for authors, so I can say, in Thrill of Love, the girl gets diagnosed with cancer during the story, and she has her leg amputated. And I can't even tell you how much research I did for that, but I have gotten so many emails and messages from readers who are thankful that I really portray these characters in a real life way, and that I am touching on all of these, not just touching on, but delving into these topics that most romance authors try and stay away from. and giving hope in the story. You know, all of my stories, of course, have a happily ever after, but I'm very careful about the way I do it, because there's a lot of, I mean, these are harsh topics. I'm trying to get away from that sound, sorry. They're harsh topics, and they're not easily navigated around, you know, so I don't try to go around them. I try to really bring them in. I just wrote a book about a treasure hunter searching for love, which is coming out in July. I want to be a treasure hunter. Like, after my research, and I spoke to attorneys, and I spoke to treasure hunters, and oh my gosh, can't even tell you. I want to do it. Like, every book that I do research on, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I want to help that person. I want to be involved there. It's, you know, that I would be remiss if I tried to present something that I didn't know anything about, first of all. And second of all, I would be bored if I was just surface writing. So I do a lot of research to answer your question.
Well, thank you for sharing that journey. That's really intensive.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it means that you've got a really good grasp of what's happening if you're like, oh, I could be this next.
Yes. When I was researching treasure hunters, I can't, probably 6 days out of a month, I walked out of my office and I go, that's it, I'm going to become a treasure hunter. And then one of my kids would go, there are sharks in the water, because my treasure hunter was a deep sea guy. And I was like, okay, forget it. I'm just not going to be that person. But it's funny. And I do feel like if I get passionate about it, readers hopefully will feel that passion. It'll come across.
Right. It definitely comes across.
Yeah.
We have a lot of new and aspiring authors that join us for these talks. What advice would you give to a new and aspiring author who's either just getting started or is considering using self-publishing?
I think it's a fantastic route. I think self-publishing offers not just control, but options. You know, you have options about when you want to publish and how you want to publish, and what to what scope and how wide and all of that. So my advice would be, do your research on self-publishing before you dive in. Like, don't just throw your books into KU. Decide if that's something that you want to do. Do the research so that you understand, and don't just see somebody's book as #1 and it's in KU and think you're going to get there. So I would say that. If you're doing it as a hobby, that's one thing. If you're doing it as a business, you have to then view it also as a business. And so that's where the quality over quantity comes in. And, you know, not rushing and making sure the story is the best it can be, and dealing with editors and proofreaders and all of that. So I think my advice would be, do your research, do your homework. The biggest question I get, and I get asked it a lot, is, can you tell me how to become a writer? Well, sure, right. I mean, everybody has a story in them. Most people don't ever finish the story. They say, I have an idea and I know it's going to be a great book. Will you help me write it? No, I can't. I have my own life that I deal with. But my advice to you is, try to write it. See if you have a full story. And you might find that it's a great story, or you might find that it's not the actual story that you want to write. You know, you want to write another one. And I tell all first-time writers, don't be surprised if you don't publish that first story. Because even now, after this many books, my first draft is brain barf. That's what I call it. Because it's getting the story on the page, but it's not polished or good or anything until after I go through and I read through it and I flesh it out and I polish it, and then it just starts to become beautiful. And then it goes through my editing process, and you know, I'm working with my developmental editor and doing my copy editor revisions and working with the proofreaders, and then it becomes just like a gift. Like, oh my God, I did this. You know, imagine giving birth that many times. That's kind of what it's like.
That's a good acronym for it. From what, if you had to pick out 1 or 2 tools that a self-published author cannot live without, what would they be?
For writing, an editor and a thesaurus. For tools as in software, hardware, always have 2 computers on hand, because if one dies, you're done. And a backup system. So Dropbox, cloud, whatever it is. Those are the important things to, for somebody who's starting out.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a few questions that have come in. What sells better, romance or heartbreak?
Okay, that question is a little bit silly, because really there are readers for both. So, and I think almost every romance book includes some heartbreak, right? Because it's real. Like, everything isn't always puppies and kittens. And I think it depends on the author, how it's written. So I can't answer that. My books include both, and some more heavily than others. Like I said, True Blue will tear you up. But then you pick up a book like Surrender My Love, and it's just like this beautiful love story with heartache, but not, knock down, drag out heartache. So what sells better? A well-written book. I mean, I really believe that. I think I don't write for trends, so I'm not the best person to ask about that, because I believe it's how well the book is written and how many people you reach, and are you hitting your right audience? You might write this is such a good point, and I hope you don't mind to bring it up, but you might write a fantastic heartbreak book and market it to the wrong audience, and you end up with crappy reviews, and you're depressed. And that's the other thing. You need to buy, any new author, buy a coat of armor, because you need thick skin. People will rip you apart in reviews. But you could write a great heartbreak book and then market it to the wrong audience, and you're going to get bad reviews. It doesn't mean your book is bad. It means you went down the wrong path. So reevaluate that. But I also believe, look at the criticism. Is the criticism valid? Because I'm telling you, even after this many books, you still learn. That's the greatest thing about writing. You're never done honing your craft. So, so evaluate why things are going wrong, and be honest with yourself, because that's the hardest part. Like, can you sit back and go, oh yeah, my book is crappy? Or can you go, because sometimes if somebody says that something's wrong and you hear the same thing from 18 people, well, hey, we have to take a look at that, right? Unless it's like 18 people out of 5,000. So be honest with yourself, because it's okay. You're learning, you're growing, and every book you're going to learn and grow. And so if somebody says your book is repetitive, or your book is too fluffy or too dark, is it the book you wanted to write? A, which is the most important thing. And then B, is it the right audience? And C, are any of these criticisms valid? Should I look at doing something about that? So I think that's and any book, this is the other thing. Once you've written a number of books, you can write those first books better, because there's that learning curve, and you're always growing as an author. If you're doing your homework, you're always growing as an author. So don't expect that the first book is going to be, you're gonna think it's fantastic when you write it, but 2 years down the line, you're probably gonna look back and go, oh, wow, I did that? Okay, I could still clean that up. So that's normal. I think for new authors, they need to know that's totally normal.
You brought up a really, really excellent point in the fact that I hear frequently where authors are frustrated. They've released their book and it's not getting any sales, or people are viewing their page, but it's not converting into sales. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you might be marketing to the wrong reader. How do you correct for that? How do you find your reader base?
Well, I think for every author, it's different. One thing that you can do, and probably the easiest way to do it, is to get onto Amazon, find books that are similar to yours, go to that author's page and see who has bought her book. So in other words, people who bought Susan Mallory have also bought whoever, Debbie Bacomer, see, and if your books are just like that, then maybe that's the audience that you should market towards. But it really depends. I think you also have to read some of those books, because that can
Mhm.
lead you very astray, because a lot of people are getting their sales from, a lot of authors get their sales from big ads. You know, they'll spend
Mhm.
$30,000 and get a bunch of sales, but you have to then look at the reviews, because are they marketing to the wrong audience? And I
Mhm.
can't tell you, I mean, I'm a marketer, so I know to do these things, but I can't tell you how many times people are like, well, I'm marketing to this person's audience and they're totally my, you know, they write what I write. Have you ever read their books? No. But that's what I see on social media. I'm like, no, that is, you are
Mhm.
not doing your research. You're going to waste your money. So you have to, there are several different areas of marketing and finding your audience.
Mhm.
And I think you have to look at everything. You have to check out that person's book. You have to check out if they're getting the right readers before you start marketing to their audience.
Mhm.
It kind of becomes a funnel.
Mhm.
And it takes time. It's not the kind of thing that you can do in a week, because there's too much information out there and it is overwhelming. But
Mhm.
you do it slowly and you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to look at these 6 authors. I'm going to download 6 books. I'm going to read the first chapter, middle chapter, and end chapter,
Mhm.
to sort of get an idea, you know, of what's what. And there are different levels of romance. So if you are writing angsty romance, then you need to market to an angsty romance group.
Right.
And it's very hard to find. And the other thing is, it's fluid, it changes, and it
Mhm.
changes partially with what's going on in the world. So, you know, angsty romances might have been very, very big last year. Well, guess what? Our world is in chaos.
Mhm.
And most people want to escape that.
Right.
And so they're not, you might see their, I'm not saying you do, but you might see their reading habits changed and
Mhm.
they are looking for more romantic comedy now.
Mhm.
But again, you can't really write to that. You have to write what you write and then just find the audience. And it just takes a lot of narrowing down.
Mhm. Really good call outs. Now I think we've got time for just a couple more
Sure.
questions. Um, you mentioned the fact that, you know, you can go back and see that there is so much opportunity for change in earlier books that you've written. Do you actually ever go back and edit them and republish?
I did once, only once. Um, and it wasn't because I felt like it was poorly written. It was because I wanted to give more of the story. So
Mhm.
Lovers at Heart was my very first Braden book, and people fell in love with the Bradens from that book. So obviously it resonated.
Mhm.
But it had always, I don't know, 3 books, 4 books, 5 books, 7 books, 10 books in, it started to nag at me like, wait a second, I have more about Treat and Max that I want to say. But it was
Mhm.
more about their beginning of their relationship and how it grew, more so than I want to write a novella about their after, you know, after
Mhm.
their happily ever after.
Right.
So I did go through and rewrite some of that. And I kept all of the original, most of the original storyline,
Mhm.
but I just added and, you know, added and changed and gave more depth to it,
Mhm.
and it made me happy. It made me happy to do it. So
Mhm.
I did it because of that. I would love to be able to go back and rewrite my first 3 books, but I'm not going to do that, because you know what, that was my journey. My
Right.
journey was starting here, and people still love those books.
Mhm.
And so they're not horribly written books. They're
Mhm.
well written books and they're good stories. Could I
Mhm.
write them better now? Yes. But that's their character. This is the stories of these characters. And I'm
Mhm.
not going to change that. I'm not, you know, I just don't feel like that's something that I want to do.
You also mentioned earlier KU, and I wanted to explain that that's Kindle Unlimited.
Yes.
And for authors, you would enroll in KDP Select in order to become part of Kindle Unlimited, because that's the subscription service for readers. Now,
Right.
are you part of Kindle Unlimited or
Only
not?
with my Montlake books.
Okay.
Montlake is part of Kindle Unlimited.
Right.
I'm wide on all retailers for all of my other books.
Why did you make that choice? And we get feedback from authors that some feel that going wide is definitely the best solution for them, and some feel like being in Kindle Unlimited is the best solution for them. Why did you
Um,
make the choice to go wide?
well, I've been publishing since long before KU started.
Yep.
And I have loyal readers on
Hmm.
all other venues.
Hmm.
I'm not going to screw them over, so to speak.
Yep.
I am a loyal person. I mentioned that to you before, and I
Hmm.
really feel like these are readers who have bought 50 of my books. I'm going to give
Right.
them every one that I can. And while I love working with Montlake, I do get notes from readers often that say, hey, wait a second, I can't get this book on Nook or Apple or Google Play or whatever. And so I always take the time to respond to them and explain that they can download a free Kindle app. They can get the paperback, get the audiobook, and so I help with that.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, it's just I don't believe in putting all your eggs in one basket. Can I say
Hmm.
that, even though you're
Yeah,
Amazon?
absolutely. No,
Okay.
absolutely. This is
Yeah,
your story, so.
I really don't believe that it's the way to go.
Mhm.
I believe that if you want to reach the most readers who
Hmm.
are serious readers,
Hmm.
then kind of be everywhere. You're missing out on so thousands and thousands of people. Yes, Amazon's the biggest,
Hmm.
but there are thousands of people out there who also like to read who are not on Amazon.
Hmm.
Um, and as far as KU goes, take a look at the numbers. That's all that I'm going to say to you. Take a look at what you are paid per page view, and then make decisions for yourself.
Hmm.
But for me, wide was the way to go, and I'm happy that I am there. And people have asked me, can you just put this series into Kindle Unlimited? I'm like, no, because I have other readers who would be really upset over that. So I feel
Right.
like now I've got, because of Montlake, I have a KU base there. I've got
Hmm.
6 books in there, and the 7th one is coming out, so readers can get those books on KU. And then if
Hmm.
they want my other books, they can get them from Amazon. But
Hmm.
so they don't lose out. KU readers don't lose out, but the other retailers, they do lose out on that.
Hmm.
But
That's a
so that's
really
why I
good
keep
point.
everything wide.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, and
Sure.
we really appreciate you joining us. We're pretty much out of time. This has been wonderful. Your story and your passion. I love how passionate you are, especially about your characters in your book.
Oh,
So
I'm
thank
so
you so much
crazy.
for sharing that.
I feel like they're real. When I have to get something done on my house, I'm like, can I just call Blue Rider? Because he would come right over and he would get it done. That's one of my characters. I'm just crazy with it. But thank you. I've had so much fun today. I truly appreciate you, asking me to come on and talking with me. And I hope it was helpful.
I think so. I know I learned, so hopefully everybody else did too.
Fantastic. I wish everybody luck. There are enough readers out there for everybody.
Mhm.
And people get really weird. Some authors get very strange about it, like they don't want to share their tips and that sort of
Mhm.
thing because they're afraid that they'll lose readers just because they'll have more books to read. Readers read thousands of books a year. I mean, hundreds of books a year. So don't be afraid of that. I'm one that says share your knowledge, write your books, enjoy your life. Like just be happy with what you're doing and help others be happy.
Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today. And just a reminder, there will be a follow-up email for those of you who have joined us with the link to our other upcoming sessions, as well as the recording that'll go out tomorrow. So you can check us out on YouTube. You can either look up KDP University or KDP University at Home and find all of our sessions there. But thank you for joining us today, and as always, happy publishing.